Hey guys, and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be covering how to prepare for the UiPath Advanced Developer RPA certification, also known as the UiARD certification by UiPath. Right, so there's a lot of uncertainty around what this UiARD certification is and how to prepare for it, what to study, what's covered, etc. So that's what I'm going to cover in this video. I'm going to cover the who, what, when, where, how about the certification, as well as the best way to prepare for the certification. And we'll also do an example from the test right at the end, right? Just so you can get a general idea of what type of questions they ask. Right, so firstly, what is it? All right, so what you will receive is this certification. That one on the left, that's my certification, the UiPath Certified Advanced RPA Developer. All right, and you also get a UiARD digital badge, all right, which is a URL. You can actually add this, they give this to you to add to something like a LinkedIn post, and then this is how you can verify that that you have earned the certification. So let me just show you what it looks like. All right, this is it. So this is the public badge. All right, so it'll have your name. All right, it'll say the date you earned it. It'll have the little badge, which is the Advanced RPA Developer, and you'll notice that this one is valid through forever. All right, so notice that this UiARD certification, it's different to the previous one which they had, which was the legacy certification. So this is what the previous advanced developer certification looked like. All right, and you'll see that this one expires on the 30th of June 2021. All right, whereas the new certification, right, doesn't have an expiration date. If we see here, you see it's valid through forever. So that's what's great about earning this certification. It'll always be valid. This is now the UiARD. There's also a UiRPA, which is the associate certification. So this is what the associate certification looks like. All right, this is completed by one of my students, Vaishnavi is one of my students in my complete RPA bootcamp, and she managed to earn the associate certification. However, you are able to earn the advanced certification as well from the content in my course, but we'll get to that a bit later. All right, so next we have why. All right, so why would you want to get certified? All right, I'm just going to run through this quickly. To gain credibility, to increase your marketability because of employer preference, meaning that some employers will only hire you if you have the certification. And fourthly, personal satisfaction and personal development. So basically, the main reason why you'd want the certification is because people will take you more seriously, and they'll trust that you know what you're doing with UiPath. So when I say people, I'm referring to employers or potential clients. All right, so where do you take the test? At a Pearson VUE Test Center, where there's quite a few of them located around the world. All right, if you're not located in a country which has one of those test centers, you can do it online. All right, that's how I did it because I'm based in South Africa. So you can take it online, and it is a proctored exam. So what happens is the software which you use takes control of your PC, so you're not able to minimize or open any other tabs or anything like that. This is done to prevent cheating. You have to keep your eyes on the screen the entire time. Somebody is actually watching you for the entire duration of the exam. So it's a 2-hour long exam, and there's actually somebody watching you through your front camera. And before the test begins, you have to take photos around your desk, the front, left, right, and back of your desk, to show that your desk is empty and there's nothing around you which you could cheat with. You're not even allowed to wear a watch. I was wearing a watch, and they asked me to actually take my watch off during the exam. So they're very, very strict. And if you move your eyes away from the screen, they will warn you that they're going to fail you. It is very strict. So if you're considering cheating, I highly recommend you don't do it, because you will get caught and you will lose the money that you paid for the certification. So how much does it cost? All right, so the two different types of certifications, you have the associate, which is the UiRPA, and you have the advanced, which is the UiARD. So the associate certification is $150 and the advanced certification is $200. There's no retakes allowed unless you pay an additional fee. All right, so if you fail it, you're gonna have to pay the $200 again. If you fail it again, you're gonna have to pay the $200 again. So they do allow retakes, but they will charge for it. All right, so just some minor details that are useful to know. The exam's 2 hours long. There are 63 questions and the pass score is 70%. All right, it's closed book. You can't use any resources to help you answer any of the questions. It's proctored, meaning that there's someone watching you the entire time, as I mentioned. And then there's 3 types of questions that you get asked. There's multiple choice, which is the majority of the questions. Then there's build, list, drag and drop. So they'll give you, for instance, a bunch of steps, and then you need to drag and drop those steps into the correct order. And then you get simulation based answers, which is basically like they will give you an image or a simulation of a properties panel, and they'll say, if we want this specific condition to be set, what must we set the properties to? And then you need to physically click into that properties panel and change the properties and type in values wherever you need to, etc. So those are the 3 types of questions. But from what I remember, I think there was about 2 or 3 build, list, drag and drop questions, and there's about 2 or 3 simulation based questions, and the rest were all multiple choice. All right, so what to study? All right, so they do give you an exam description document. So let me show you that. That is over here. You can find this on their website. They update this. Note that this is for version 1.0. They might change the certification to version 1.1 or version 2.0, whatever. So the scope of the exam might change. So you always want to come to this documentation and see what the scope is. You want to come to the exam topic section, and basically every single one of these bullet points, you need to make sure you know and understand how to do what they're explaining in every single one of these bullet points. For example, differentiate between simulate versus send window messages versus default. So you need to know what the differences are, and I cannot emphasize enough, you need to understand what you're learning. All right, I don't want you to go and just memorize the theory behind it. You must actually understand, or else you're not going to be able to answer the questions. The questions are very tricky, and they do test your knowledge of application. You really need to know how to use UiPath, and orchestrator and reframework, etc. You can't just parrot fashion learn from the documentation and expect to pass. You really have to understand the stuff. All right, so this is basically what the scope of what you want to learn. I'm not going to go through all of it. You can read through this in your own time. Right, so what's more important than what to study is how to study. All right, so there's different approaches to studying depending if you are experienced or if you are a beginner. So if you're an experienced RPA developer, what I would recommend you do is you study from the documentation. So that's docs.uipath.com. And this is exactly how I studied. What I did is I came to this document and I started at the top here, and I read this one: identify and describe background versus foreground automation and how background automation is used for monitoring. All right, so what I did is I went to the documentation, I came here and I searched background automation. Right, search that, and then I read up as many documentations as I could that was about background automation. So I would have opened these 2 tabs, right, because these are both about background automation, and then I would read through all of this, right, and I'd read through all of this, making sure I understand everything. All right, then I would work my way down the list, and I'd basically just read everything in the documentation. As an experienced RPA developer, you're able to do this because when you read this documentation, you're actually going to understand what it's saying. All right, whereas if you're a beginner, you're going to be reading this and it's going to not make any sense at all. So that's why I would recommend a different approach if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, I'd recommend you check out my complete RPA bootcamp. It's basically my flagship course to take you from beginner to advanced with UiPath. I'll teach you everything you need to know, from knowing nothing about RPA, knowing nothing about UiPath, to basically becoming a pro within a month. It's about 50 hours of content. So we built 14 bots, all right, from start to finish. And then we also have 3 bonus sections, where one of the sections is cracking the UiPath RPA Developer Advanced Certification. All right, so I've had plenty students go through this course. I've had hundreds of students give great testimonials about the course. You can come check this out at completerpabootcamp.com/testimonial. Many of my students have gotten certified, and it really is a great course to take you from beginner to advanced. But if you are interested, check out the link in the description. You'll see a link to my webinar where you can learn more about the complete RPA bootcamp. But if you are a beginner, I'd highly recommend that you at least check it out, at least watch the webinar. There's some great content in there as well to help you prepare for this certification. Let's just do an example question just so you can have a general idea of what you can find in the test. All right, so a new blank project with only a main XAML file consists of a single throw activity. The activity is not enclosed in a try-catch activity. If this process is published and run from Orchestrator, what is the expected result? And then it'll give you 4 options to choose from, all right, multiple choice. Option 1, the job is completed with a faulted state. Option 2, job is completed with a successful state. 3, job is completed with a stopped state. And 4, exception pop-up is displayed on the robot machine. All right, so can you guess what the answer is? The answer is number 1, job is completed with the faulted state. All right, and the reason for that is the throw activity. What this does is it will create an error. All right, and when an error happens while running a bot from Orchestrator, it's going to change the state to faulted. Right, if there's no error, it'll be successful. And lastly, exception pop-up is displayed on the robot machine. So this will happen if you trigger the bot from Studio. So if you trigger the bot from UiPath Studio, then the exception pop-up will be displayed. However, that's not what the question asked. The question asked if it's run from Orchestrator. And so because of that, the job is completed with the faulted state. So you really need to be careful. You have to read the questions really carefully because a simple word like this, if this word was Studio instead of Orchestrator, 4 would have been the answer. But because it says Orchestrator, 1 is the answer. So that's just one example. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope this video was helpful to help you learn how to prepare for the UiPath certification. And if you are a beginner and you want to go from beginner to pro with UiPath and get certified, I highly recommend you go to this URL. All right, this is the URL to my webinar, and you can check that out. And it'll be a great first step on learning how to get certified with UiPath.